In this video, we go over 4 different ways to support kids who are learning lace tying for the first time. So the first we're going to look at is mnemonics. A mnemonic is a technique where you encode information in a way that is easier to remember. In this example, we look at rhymes. This is just one example of a rhyme. There's lots available over YouTube, and if you're super creative, you can even give it a crack at making your own. You might start by teaching the child the rhyme first while you tie the laces, and then moving into the child saying the rhyme themselves while also tying their laces. The next thing we're going to look at is reducing the fine motor demand of shoelace tying. So this is just one technique you can use to reduce the fine motor demand. So you feed the end of the shoelace, the aglet, through the eyelet hole, and you pull the aglet until you have a loop, and you repeat on the other side. This means the child doesn't have to focus on maintaining those loops. If they do drop it, it's okay because the loop isn't going to come undone. So again, this is something that you can help the child with initially, like maybe feeding the aglet through the eyelets is a bit difficult to start, but over time that is something we can grade to and the child can start doing independently. Next, we're going to look at simplifying some of those complex bilateral movements that are demanded in shoelace tying. So again, this is just one technique that we're showing here. This technique allows the child to use both hands when creating that loop, so it's definitely easier than trying to create a loop in one hand and then a loop in the other. You get to use both hands for each loop. We're using a bulldog clip here, but you can definitely use a peg or a hair clip or really whatever's lying around that will keep those shoelaces in place. It might be helpful for a parent to do the clipping initially because it might be quite difficult to hold the shoelace and the clip. You can also grade this activity, so you can use 2 clips to start and then move into using just 1 and eventually no clips. And finally, we are looking at backwards chaining. So you start by breaking down the task into small steps. We have an example up here, but those steps are going to look different for everybody depending on their level of skill at the time. So you teach your child the last step first, having yourself completed all the steps up until that last step, and you work backwards from the goal. So you see all those yellow steps are what the parent or guardian would be completing, and then that final step in orange is what we would get the child to complete in the first session of backwards chaining. And once the child was successful in completing that last step independently, we would move forward to teaching the 2 last steps. So again, the parent or guardian would complete all the steps that are in yellow, and then for step number 6 and 7 in orange would be getting the child to try and complete those. Once the child can do those independently, you'd keep going up until you've completed all the steps independently. Some final considerations for when we're learning and teaching lace tying. So try to avoid the morning school rush. We don't want to be adding stress to anything in the morning, so maybe practice lace tying in the afternoon with the school shoes still on, but none of the stress. And also consider trying thicker laces, thinner laces, longer laces, and 2-tone laces. So you're going to have like a red color lace in their left hand and maybe a blue color lace in their right hand. Everyone's different, so what might work for someone's definitely not going to work for everyone. And lastly, developing those hand muscles and dexterity through activities like painting, drawing, playing the drums, Play-Doh, and beading. They're really going to help translate to great shoelace tying.